Hey guys, I'm Chase Brogan. Today in this video we're going to tour through the PeaPrit 12TB plug-and-play multi-system game drive. This includes over 100,000 retro video games, plug-and-play ready to go on this drive as soon as you plug it into your PC. So we've got multi-system advertised here. That includes Hyperspin, Launchbox, Techno Parrot. We even have RetroBat on here and Launchbox plus Kodi. So it's got a whole lot to offer, it seems anyways, and it's priced at just $149 at the time of this recording on AliExpress. So I'm super excited to dive into this. Let's get started touring through everything that this has to offer. Alright guys, here we are on our 12TB multi-system plug-and-play game drive here. So this is broken down into a bunch of different parts. So first off we have Hyperspin, Attraction right here, and we'll dive into each of these, but it kicks off with Hyperspin. Right below that we have Techno Parrot, we have Kodi in here, we have Launchbox, we have Play Night, and we have RetroBat. So these are the different compartments, if you will, of this game drive here. So let's dive first into Hyperspin, which I know is going to be a massive setup here with tons and tons of games loaded into this, ready to go. Alright, so we kick it off here with Midway looking right at us. We've got great Midway games. Alright, so we've landed on Midway. I'm actually going to just kind of scroll around here. So we've got a bunch of different Midway collections. So pretty much everything that Midway ever had to offer would be found within here. Let's jump into just one collection of the Midway collections, and you can see the layout. So we've got a video preview that kicks off here. There is audio to all of this. I've just lowered the volume considerably, just so I'm not kind of competing with that as I explain everything that we're seeing on screen. Beautifully put together here. I like the marquee at the top that shows you which collection you're highlighting. I also obviously love the video preview, and we get a little bit of information title by title that populates in the bottom left corner. So title, year it was released, and the developer, which obviously since we're in a developer specific collection, we know exactly what that is. But very nice layout here. We've got a lot of great titles. We can back out easily. We can go into the next one. Inside here, we land on 2-on-2 Open Ice Challenge, one of my all-time favorite arcade games. We've got Mortal Kombat 3. We've got Hang Time. We've got Rampage World Tour. WrestleMania down here as well. So definitely broken up very nicely. We've got Mortal Kombat specific collection here. If we jump in here, we've got, first off, it looks like a whole lot of duplicates, but we do have each of the Mortal Kombat titles. We saw 2, we saw 3, we saw 4. So ridiculous amount of duplicates. I will say that right off of the bat here. And these are, you know, basically the same exact title, 2 over and over. But you can see as we scroll through here, we've got a bunch of Namco collections, Nintendo arcade games. So just a lot of subcategories and collections in here. Outrun. Love the Outrun titles. So if we go in here, you can see there's a bunch of different versions, but we do have a lot of duplicates, you know, again, in here. I mean, just take a look as I'm scrolling through here. Definitely a lot of duplicates there. We've got Pac-Man collection. If we go in here, you'll find a bunch of different Pac-Man games here. Let's see. And these aren't all like straight up Pac-Man. There's some that are, you know, basically similar to Pac-Man, but yeah, I don't know if I would have put that in there, but Platformers collection, we've got Pinball FX3. Now, huge fan of Pinball FX3. This is cool to find on here. I mean, take a look at these interactive tables. I'm not going to launch these just because we've got a lot to cover here, but the video preview really shows you everything that you need to see. If you like virtual pinball, this is definitely going to be a blast for you. And the Jurassic World and Jurassic Park tables are phenomenal. The Jaws ones are great as well. And I believe there's some for like Alien, Predator, E.T. is another great one. Doom is very cool. So you'll be able to kind of poke around here and find really cool stuff. Attack from Mars is a great one as well. There we go. Here's the Alien ones. There's another one down here. Wild West is cool. So I could spend a lot of time in here, and then you have all the Star Wars. Now I'll pull up my favorite Star Wars. Where is it? Let's see. So I have a virtual pinball machine. This is my favorite one right here, and this is Return of the Jedi. I have a virtual pinball machine, and all these tables are on there, so it's a blast to play each one of those. But you can see, just absolutely amazing. So we'll back out of that. Keep it moving here. Puzzle arcade games. We've got just tons and tons of stuff. And then we start diving into our other specific collections like a Thomas Wave here. We've got down here a bunch of Sega options. So Sega Classics is a great one. And then there's all the little subcategories. We've got Sega Model 1, Model 2, Model 3. Model 3 is a great one. We'll jump in here briefly. Harley Davidson game, kind of like a Crazy Taxi, but with a motorcycle. We've got also, what's another good one? The Lost World Jurassic Park's awesome. I love Scud Race. Star Wars Arcade, probably my all-time favorite for Sega Model 3. And then what else do we have in here? Daytona USA 2. Daytona USA 2 is another great one. Dirt Devils, great title here. So just tons and tons of games that you can find in each of these collections. We've got Sega Naomi, Naomi 2. We've got Nomad in here. We've got all the different Sega systems, just one after the other in here. Shoot 'em up games, SNK games, SNK Neo Geo CD, Neo Geo Mini, Neo Geo System over here, Space Invaders. So it's like franchise collections, console collections, developers. I mean, it's a lot to comb through inside this particular, side of this drive, but tons of stuff. Tekken specific collection. Let's jump into Tekken. I'm a huge Tekken fan. So we got original Tekken here, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament, Tekken 4, Tekken 5. So lots of titles. Now, duplicates all over the place, man. I mean, I'm not crazy about duplicates. If you've ever seen my review videos in the past, I always rip drives for having too many of the same title. But, at the end of the day, at least we have access to the games. We just have access to more versions of them than we would ever need. So, lots of great stuff. Now, huge wrestling fan here. Love wrestling games. Let's see what's waiting for us inside the wrestling collection. So we've got Champion Wrestler here, which is actually pretty cool. That's one you don't always see. We've got, now these are actually awesome too. Giant Graham, and we have Giant Graham 2000 as well. Let's see what else we have. The main event. So these are all Mania Challenge. These are all like generic wrestling games. They're not WWF, WCW, etc. But I'm sure we do have some of those the further down we go. Let's see. Royal Rumble is going to kick it all off here. We've got Superstars. And again, Duplicate City here. But WrestleFest, my all-time favorite. WrestleMania. And you will have different versions of some of these. So like this one's MAME. One of these is likely going to be PlayStation, I would imagine. I guess not. Trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here. It looks like they are all MAME, actually. But, there are some titles that were released both to consoles, home consoles, as well as, for the arcade. So like T2 Judgment Day, for example, that was released to Genesis, Super Nintendo, as well, of course, as the arcade. So you will find duplicates in that sense in here, but a lot of these appear to be the exact same version. So very cool stuff inside here, though, and this is all arcade specific. So we'll back out. What else? We have our favorites collection over here, and then we can go into our controls and stuff like that. We have a Batman collection. Let's jump into Batman. So we've got some of the V-pin tables on here. We also have, if we scroll down, we'll find those arcade games. Here we have the arcade Batman game from 1991 by Atari. This is a great game. Always enjoyed playing this side-to-side style game. But those pinball tables are phenomenal. And then we also have Batman Forever here, which I was never good at that one. Just never had any success with that. And then we have all of our old school Atari in here. Really cool stuff. Capcom all over the place. All the different categories for Capcom. Data East. Golden Axe is in here. Konami. And we're back to, right around where we started. There's also light gun games. Let's jump into light guns real quick. Huge light gun fan. Gunbuster. Hit and Miss. Hogan's Alley. House of the Dead 2. Judge Dredd. Wow, this is a game that I absolutely love. So many little hidden areas that you can kind of unlock and different objects you can shoot to get power-ups and all that cool stuff. So what else do we have? We've got Lethal Enforcers, a whole hell of a lot of Lethal Enforcers. Lethal Enforcers 2, Lethal Justice. Got the Lost World on here, which we saw in the Sega Model 3. Maximum Force, great game. The Maze of Kings, love that as well. So many great titles. So, all right, we'll keep it moving here. Let's back out of this altogether. We'll go up to yes to exit, and we can go into the next one. So we got Techno Parrot here. Let's dive into Techno Parrot. I love Techno Parrot. So many great games on here. Interested to see what's included, though. So we've got Namco games in here. We've got, let's just jump into the generic Techno Parrot collection. So we got Super Mario Brothers for Wii up here. We've got, wow, Operation Ghost, great light gun game. There's some that I'm actually not familiar with in here too. And then Rabbids Hollywood is a great one. So it's not just light gun games in here. Like we have the Rumblefish 2, which is a cool game. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Arcade. This is a great version of the game. I mean, I played this a whole lot for PlayStation 3, but this actually is the preferred version in my opinion. We also have Sonic Dash Extreme on here. We have some Spider-Man going on here. Techno Parrot is a great collection. We even have Star Wars Battle Pod. If you haven't tried this game, definitely check it out. Such a blast to play, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. We even have Tomb Raider in here. We got some Street Fighter in here. Wacky Races is a cool game. Now, Aliens Extermination, one of my favorite light gun games here. Batman, this is a cool game as well. This is like a racing sort of shoot 'em as you go style game. I mean, it's kind of weird because there's a lot of elements going on here, but it's a blast to play. I've played through it many times through Techno Parrot and also in the arcade. The list just goes on and on. Contra Evolution is a great game. Daytona Championship USA. You can see very much the original Daytona feel, but with souped up graphics. Just an overall better experience. We've got some Dead or Alive 5 and 6 in here. Dirty Driving. This game is insane. This is like Dirt Devils on steroids. You got to check this one out as well. Very similar in action to the Batman racing game that we just highlighted. Far Cry Paradise Lost is a cool kind of, I would say, more of a rail shooter than a light gun game. Gets a little repetitive, as you can see here just looking at the demo, but really cool stuff. Friction's a good game. Wow, I mean, this is like endless here. An H2O Overdrive, or H2 Overdrive, great game, very much like, what's it, Aqua GT and Hydro Thunder. More Street Fighter in here. And we're back to where we started. So we'll back out of that one. We'll keep it moving here. We'll go up to yes to exit Techno Parrot. And now let's go into, so Cody, I think most people know their way around Cody. I don't usually highlight those on here. We have Launchbox, we have Play Night, we have Retrobat left. Let's go into Retrobat next. I'm a huge Retrobat fan personally. I just find it to be a really easy to navigate setup on here. So let's see what they have for us. All right, guys, here we are now in Retrobat. And we are currently hovering over the All Games list. The All Games list is your master list. It's going to have every single title that's in the Retrobat side of this drive in alphabetical order for easy access. And if you take a look at that number at the top of the screen there, dead center, it says 48,034 games. So over 48,000 games just on Retrobat here. This is pretty insane. Let's jump into the All Games list just so we can see the layout within here. Now, we do have audio for the video previews, but again, I've just lowered the volume just for the sake of this video, so you may hear it faintly in the background, but it does sound good. There's some background tunes as well, but we've got our alphabetical order list on the left-hand side, and in parentheses after every title, it tells you which console collection it belongs to, because like I said earlier, there's definitely titles that were released for different platforms. So you may have titles that there's duplicates of, but it's because they belong to different collections, like Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That would be on Super Nintendo, Genesis, and home arcade. So we get a video preview for each of these titles. We get cover art or box art, we get a description, we get a bunch of information as to when we played it last, the type of game that it is. Like this one's a strategy game, tells us who created it, what year it was released. I mean, we have access to every bit of information for each one of these titles. So definitely like the way that this is laid out. There are some titles like this one right here where the scraped data is not available, so I can't say that it's totally uniform, but it does seem like the majority of titles have the video preview, or maybe I spoke too soon. We're seeing a lot here that don't. But all right, here we go. We're in Agent Under Fire for Xbox. We get all the necessary information, and that cover art there, the way that it's laid out, looks really cool, where you can actually see the spine of the game as well. So we'll keep moving through here. Here we go, 007, Everything or Nothing for PlayStation 2, video preview, as well as the actual case and cover art, box art, all that good stuff. So this one of my favorites. This is the PSP version of From Russia with Love. But if we scroll down on that list, you can see we also have, oops, I went too far. We also have the PS2 version. So that's what I mean by sometimes it looks like a duplicate, but it belongs to a different collection entirely. So let's back out. We'll keep running through here. We have an arcade collection here. This only has 5 games. Now, that's not a problem because we already saw how many arcade games are present on the Hyperspin side of things here. So each one of these front ends, if you will, seems to have highlights. And, you know, this one here we have, wow, Star Wars Pod Racer. That is one you don't typically see on here. I'm really impressed by that, actually. This is a great game. I love all the pod racing games, but arcade is one that I have not seen on a lot of game drives, so that's impressive. Got NASCAR racing in here. I have played this. This is a great game as well. Not a big NASCAR guy. However, the games are absolutely amazing. We'll back out. We've got favorites here. This is a collection you can put together yourself. Add all your favorite titles in here for easy access. And convenience, we have light gun games over here now, 195 light gun games. And we have a lot of light gun games as we saw on the Hyperspin side, but let's dive into this side here and see what we have. So we've got Area 51 for Saturn, we've got Area 51 for PlayStation. So this is what I was talking about before. I was suspecting we would have the console versions of some light gun games. It looks like that's what we have here. We have Wii, Attack of the Movies 3D. Pretty cool game, kind of cheesy, but it's like a good cheesy. We also have Barnyard Blasters, a cool one for Atari 7800. That's going old school here. So yeah, it looks like the majority of these titles, like Chicken Blaster here, is for Nintendo Wii. We had so many great light gun games that a lot of people overlook. We've got Confidential Mission, and this is the home console version on Dreamcast, not the Sega Naomi one. So yeah, it looks like all of these are going to be home console versions of titles. Like Duck Hunt for NES over here, very cool. Get some old school Commodore 64 games as well. Gunfighter, this was a cool game for PlayStation. And here's Judge Dredd. So we saw the arcade version before. Now this is the PlayStation 1 version. And same deal for like Lethal Enforcers 1 and 2. Mad Dog. Maximum Force is for PlayStation here and Sega Saturn. We saw the arcade versions previously. So very cool. I mean, you have access to a little bit of everything with this drive is what I'm seeing so far. We've got old school Operation Wolf over here as well for Amstrad CPC. So we'll back out of light gun games. We have Last Played, which is just kind of like your history of the last 50 titles that you've played. So if you were playing a game and you quit for the day and came back the next day, you'd be able to access it in here, kind of like the favorites works. We've got arcade vertical games here, and it's showing that there's actually no games in here. Weird that it populates in, but honestly, you have the vertical games on other sides of this drive here, so you don't need them here. But lots of old school stuff, as you're seeing, a lot of Atari. We have some ColecoVision, some Amiga in here, MSX. Original Xbox, now 62 original Xbox games. This is another thing that you don't typically see on these plug-and-play game drives like this. So Agent Under Fire, one of my all-time favorite 007 video games. But we've got 100 Bullets, which is a cool one. We've got 25 to Life, another cool title. Arctic Thunder is fun. Batman wasn't crazy on this one, but Big Mother Truckers. We've got Blood Rain. We've got some Capcom versus SNK. We've got, what else do we have here? Conker's in here, which is always fun. Some Forza Motorsport, original Forza right there. Harry Potter's in here, Jet Set Radio Future. Lots of really great titles. Soldier of Fortune 2's in here, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2X. Great sort of remix on the original. At the time, it was actually, kind of remastered, but they've remastered this multiple times since then. But it's very true to the original. It just has souped up graphics. Totaled, which I've actually been meaning to try this game out. I don't think I've ever played this one. So lots of great stuff in here. We'll keep it moving. We have Xbox 360, 5 games in here. Wow. I saw games played at the bottom. That's not the game count. 114 Xbox 360 games. Let's dive in here. Ace Combat, good titles. Air Conflicts, love those. Alien vs. Predator, Alone in the Dark. Amped 3. I think I've only played Amped 1 and 2, actually. Looks like some great titles. Attack of the Movies 3D. We talked about this earlier for Wii. I didn't even know this was released for 360. Backyard Football 10 is a cool one. Takes me back to my childhood, but 360 was kicked up graphics. Bayonetta's in here. We've got the Burnout. We've got Bully Scholarship Edition. It's a good one. Body Count. What else do we have? We've got Conflict, Denied Ops. We've got Dead Space, Dead to Rights, Deadliest Catch, Def Jam, Diablo 3. Wow. Forza 2, FIFA Street 3, Gears of War 2 and 3. Wow. No original Gears of War, though. Gears of War Judgment. That's actually a pretty good game. Golden Axe, Beast Rider. Halo, Halo Reach, Halo 3. So no, we've got the Combat Evolved Anniversary. We don't have, I was about to say we don't have Halo 2. That's because it was for original Xbox. Duh. Alright, we got some Lego Star Wars in here. Lord of the Rings. I've never played this one. The Battle for Middle-earth 2. I've never played this. And I actually really enjoy Lord of the Rings games. I'm surprised I haven't played that one. We've got some Need for Speed down here. Prize Fighter, Project Gotham Racing 3 and 4, Prototype, Red Dead Redemption, and we've got Disc 1 and Disc 2, of course. Resident Evil, we've got the Undead Nightmare from Red Dead Redemption. We've got Skate, SSX, Tekken 6, Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Wow, I mean, this is probably the most stacked Xbox 360 collection on a game drive I've ever seen. We've got PC Engine here, TurboGrafx 16, some more PC Engine, NES, NES hacks. How many NES games do we have here? 888, that's good. Game Boy, we've got Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, Super Game Boy, Nintendo Satellaview, Virtual Boy, N64. So how many N64 games? 553, and I'm sure we have all of our classics in here. Looks very nice as you comb through the game list here. I see all my wrestling games here. Now, there are duplicates, though the European and US versions. You can see WWF Attitude has 2 versions. No Mercy has 2 versions. Warzone has 2 versions. Mania 2000 has 2 versions. So, some people don't like that. I'm not crazy about it just because personally I'll never play the European version of games, but to each their own. There's going to be people out there that want both versions, and you can see you definitely have both versions here. So, Backstage Assault for WCW, which I've actually played through about half of recently, and it's not as bad as I remember it. That one you only have the US version. Mayhem, you have both versions. Nitro, you have the US version. Revenge, you have the European as well as US. That's my favorite game for wrestling right there. Wave Race, you have, looks like a couple different versions of Wave Race. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely padded. Like the 558 seems like, oh wow, it's a lot of games. But when you get in here, you can see that there's easily, like Top Gear Rally 2, you have 1, 2, 3 different versions of the same title, even 2 different European versions. And, you know, are they different? I honestly don't know. But, you know, I know that I'll never play that many, you know, of the same title. Even if they do differ slightly, I would never play 3 different versions. I'd just pick whatever version and stick with it. So Star Wars titles in here. I'm sure we have our Mario Kart and Mario Tennis. Let's just double check. It's just right up here. So yeah, we got Mario Tennis, 2 versions of that. We've got Mario Parties. We've got Mario Kart, 2 of that. Mario Golf, 2 of that. All right, so pretty stacked collection here. Game Boy Color, which 1959 for that, and we had Super Game Boy here, which would be, okay, so it's not a duplicate list, which is good. Sometimes you'll find that the Game Boy Color and the Super Game Boy are exactly the same, and that's not the case here, so that's cool. Nintendo GameCube now. 638 GameCube games. Wow. Let's just jump in here. Oops, I went into Game Boy Advance. We've got 3,387 Game Boy Advance games, which is too many Game Boy Advance games, but it's likely due to duplicates, as you know we've seen so far, and them putting in multiple versions. So this is GameCube, and you'll see some crossover between this, PS2, and Xbox Original. Looks like a great layout of titles here. Not seeing a ton of duplicates here. And let's just see if, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. This is going to be a really long video just because there's so much on here. But let's go to Mario Kart Double Dash and just make sure it's on here. I'm sure it is based on what we're seeing. I keep hitting the wrong button here. My bad. All right, so we got the Mario Parties in here. We've got Mario Kart Double Dash. So GameCube has this pretty streamlined where you just have US releases here. No duplicates that I'm seeing anyways. So this is ideally how I would have everything laid out. Looks really beautiful here with the video preview, the picture of the controller, picture of the console with the controller, picture of the actual game in the jacket there. So you have the spine of it, you have the cover. This is how I'd want everything to look, and you don't have multiple versions of things. So the numbers aren't padded in this collection. I wish they did this for everything here. All right, we'll keep it moving. We already saw Game Boy Advance. We have Nintendo DS. We have Wii on here with 887 Wii games. We have WiiWare. I like that they separated those. We have Wii U as well with 110 games. We have Nintendo 3DS. We have, oh wow, Nintendo Switch is on here. And 203 Switch games. All right, that's pretty crazy. So we've got, let's see. Wow, a lot of Switch games on here. And these, I mean, Switch is obviously the most recent collection that we've seen so far. Everything else has been pretty retro, but Nintendo Switch is modern, you know? So this is a little controversial, but we'll show what's on here. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, one of my favorites. Kirby All-Star, Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which is my favorite Kirby, but Kirby Star Allies is in here. Luigi's Mansion 3 is in here, twice. Of course, we've got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Mario Party Superstars, Mario Rabbids, Spark of Hope. We've got just a ton of games on here. Crazy. We've got some Pokemon titles. We've got Sonic in here as well. Splatoon's in here. Your Super Mario 3D All-Stars is in here. Odyssey's in here. Mario Maker's in here. Wonder's in here. Super Smash Brothers Ultimate's in here. Shredder's Revenge, love that game. Usually play that on the PC, but we got Zelda in here. Uncharted Waters is in here. That's a good one. Wow, that's crazy. So 203 Switch games. That's pretty nuts. Scum VM in here for the classic PC video games. Loved so many of those. Classic Sega collections, Master System, Genesis, Mega Drive, hacks as well. Game Gear, Sega CD, Sega Saturn here. How many Saturn games? 306. We've got Dreamcast, 333. Huge Dreamcast fan. It's one of my favorite collections of all time. Sinclair ZX Spectrum, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Pocket Color. We've got original PlayStation with 1,804 games. PlayStation 2 with 641 games. Let's jump in here real quick. So we definitely have crossover here between Xbox and GameCube, as I said before. 50-cent Bulletproofs in here, so you have some PlayStation 2 specific titles where there isn't that crossover between other console collections, but absolutely stacked here. This is insane. Wow. And laid out very nicely, very similar to that of, GameCube and Xbox. We have PSP over here as well. Let me back out. How many PSP games? 825. We have PSP Minis, 312. PlayStation 3, 172 PlayStation 3 games. Let's see what's in here. Kicks off with 007, Quantum of Solace. Love that game. That's a great one. Army of Two, The 40th Day. We've got some Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City in here. Bayonetta. We've got Borderlands in here. Borderlands 2, Bioshock. Call of Duty all over the place. We've got Dark Souls. Wow. Doom 3. Enchanted. Got some Grand Theft Auto in here. Some Guitar Hero. A lot of Guitar Hero, in fact. Wow. Hitman HD Trilogy. So this game right here, you have... how many titles would that be? I guess, well, trilogy. There's 3 titles in here. Let's see. Just Cause, a bunch of Lego games, Lollipop Chainsaw games. We got some Madden NFL games, MotoGP's in here. Wow, Ratchet and Clank, of course. Resident Evil, of course. Ridge Racer 7, one of my favorites. Silent Hill, Soul Calibur, Street Fighter, Tekken. This is absolutely insane what is on here. House of the Dead. Tony Hawk. Uncharted. Wow. X-Men. The list goes on and on there. So 172 PlayStation 3 games. That's insane. PS Vita. 78 games here. I never had a Vita, so this I'm not super familiar with, but it looks like some really good titles here as well. Wow. All right, keeping it moving. All right, that's pretty much it. Supervision to wrap it up, and then we're back to the all games list. So that is just Retrobat on here. Just Retrobat. Absolutely loaded with tons and tons of games here. In fact, over 48,000 in total. Yes, there's duplicates, of course, but it's not as many duplicates as what we saw on the Hyperspin side. So we're gonna get out of here. Let me do quit. It'll back us out. So we still have Launchbox. We still have Play Night. Let's jump into Launchbox and see what that has to offer. All right, guys, here we are now in Launchbox. Now, Launchbox looks very different than Retrobat. Very different front end here, but it's going to have the same collections and same game count. So, for example, Dreamcast, 333 games, just like what we found on Retrobat. So this is going to be more of whatever you, the user, prefers. Either you're a Launchbox fan or you are a Retrobat fan. For me, I'm just used to, I started with Batocera, so Batocera and Retrobat are very similar in layout, and navigating is very similar. So that's what I gravitate towards more so than Launchbox, but to each their own. But in terms of games and game collections, you have the same offering on both. So you can find all these titles on here: PlayStation, PlayStation 2. Now there are it's broken up from European and US versions here. That's a little different than what we saw on Retrobat. So there's a slight difference again in layout, but you'll find the same titles at the end of the day. PlayStation 3, 173 games, PSP, 823 games. And we can just kind of cycle through all of the available collections here. I just think it looks cooler on RetroBat personally, but again, everybody has different preferences and styles and all that stuff, but you get all the same collections and games at the end of the day. So nicely laid out, a little bit more uniform in my opinion on the other side, but still very nice offering here. So we're going to back out of this because, again, it is very much the same offerings as what we saw in RetroBat. And we'll jump into Play Night, the last bit of this drive. So Play Night right here, we'll just go ahead and launch that. All right, guys, we're in Play Night now. We've got 6 Angry Birds games across the top here. So if you're an Angry Birds fan, you are in luck. I mean, you're going to get your money's worth right here. There's 6 titles. I'm familiar with a few of these. Angry Birds is always fun. We've got Cyberpunk down here. We got Devil May Cry 5. We've got some Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Quest. We've got Elden Ring. We've got FIFA 19, some Final Fantasy, some God of War. We've got Grand Theft Auto titles here, 3 Grand Theft Auto titles. We've got what else? Horizon Chase Turbo. We've got Just Cause 4, King of Fighters. We've got looks like Mega Man there, MotoGP 19, Rage 2, Zombie Army Trilogy, Resident Evil 4. Lots of great titles in here. Not a whole lot, but still some pretty solid titles that I'm sure some people will enjoy. So definitely the smallest offering out of everything on here, but I mean, these are AAA titles at the end of the day, so they do take up a lot more space than retro titles. So absolutely loaded here on this 12 terabyte plug and play game drive. All right, guys, we toured through everything on here for the most part. I tried to keep things short and sweet to some extent, just so, you know, we're not diving into this for hours on end. And 12 terabytes loaded with over 100,000 games, we could certainly be at this all day and night. There's a lot to unpack here. So I really enjoy RetroBat, as I mentioned throughout this video. Big fan of Hyperspin as well. Play Night obviously has a lot of good offerings as well. Not a big Cody guy. Techno Parrot, though, another one of my favorites. I love the light gun games there. I love the racing games there. There's also some great beat 'em up style, you know, fighting games, but it's always going to be the racing games as well as the light gun games that I personally gravitate towards. A lot to offer on here. Now, is it seamless? No, I mean, there's some issues here. There's a lot of padding the numbers. And when I talk about padding the numbers, I'm always talking about duplicates. And we see, especially in Hyperspin, there's tons of duplicates in here. As you go through the different collections, and there's a whole lot of collections here, a lot of sub-collections, it's honestly a bit much to navigate, I found anyways. It looks really cool, but I mean, there's got to be like 25 Sega collections on here alone. Realistically, there might even be more, but it's a bit much to have to constantly be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then sometimes, because there's like subcategories, you'll go into a collection that only has like 6 titles or 4 titles, and then you have to go back out, go to the next one. Just, it's broken up a little bit too much. You can go through your menu and tweak the settings to adjust how many of those sub-collections are displayed, but you may miss titles if you do that. So honestly, I wasn't crazy about the Hyperspin side just for navigating purposes, but if I'm looking for something, I would be able to access it pretty easily. You just have to know what you're looking for. If you're going through just kind of poking around, looking to explore, it's a bit overwhelming, to put it delicately. Everything performs very well on here. The setup process for using this drive is pretty straightforward. You just open up the files, you go through the installation process. There's a series of different folders you have to open up and download everything. I did scan everything. There's nothing suspicious in here. Sometimes your virus detectors or virus blockers will ping because, you know, all this stuff that you use for emulation, it's not put out by like Windows. It's not put out by mainstream companies that are easily recognizable. So sometimes you do get some false positives, but everything on my drive anyways was safe, and there's no viruses or malware, which is always a major plus. Games perform very well. I was using a gaming PC, so you will have some, you know, it depends on what you're using this with. If you're using it with a high-powered mini PC, then the majority of the titles will work, but you may have some resistance with like PS3 or some of the AAA titles. Techno Parrot, there's some games that are really demanding too, so you really have to kind of gauge what you're using as to whether you're going to be able to access those games and them perform perfectly on here or not. So keep that in mind, but all your retro stuff, you know, it's really not demanding stuff at all. Atari, NES, Super Nintendo, N64, Dreamcast, all the way through PS2 usually are pretty safe and they will perform well with even, you know, relatively low-end PCs. But going into Retrobat, I found that to be really a nice setup in there. Everything was scraped beautifully, laid out very nicely, easy to navigate collections, easy to find exactly what you're looking for. You had your video previews, you had everything that I like in a nice tidy setup. So big fan of Retrobat on here. Launchbox, the same deal. Really enjoyed that. Launchbox is pretty straightforward. You didn't have all the bells and whistles on Launchbox on this setup that you would have with Retrobat, but still very nicely put together. Play Night wasn't great in my opinion. It just wasn't a lot of great offerings there, but that's the thing. Everybody is into different games, so to each their own there. For me personally, there just wasn't a lot of titles that I was really excited to dive into. There's a few, but not an overwhelming amount. Cody I don't dive into personally. There's nothing on there that I'm too excited about. Again, to each their own, but what I really enjoyed was the arcade games that were offered in Launchbox, that were offered in Hyperspin, even though it's a little bit much to navigate. And then of course I love Retrobat just because it pretty much had the best of the best on there. Great console collections, loaded to the gills with tons of amazing titles, and it's very easy to set up. So big fan of this. And now the price point on here is rock bottom, honestly, for what you get. 12 terabyte hard drive, packed with tons of games on AliExpress for under 150 bucks. You can't beat it. I mean, it's an insane deal on here. Is it controversial? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely controversial here for sure. So, you know, proceed, you know, at your own comfort with something like this, but just looking at what it has to offer here and touring through it, I'm a big fan. So I'll provide a link at the top of your screen. There's some links in the description if you want to get additional information on this product. Jump in there, you know, poke around, see if it's right for you, but you definitely get bang for your buck here. It's very convenient, of course. So, you know, if it's for you, take a closer look. If not, drop a thumbs up on your way out. Appreciate you guys watching the video. Appreciate the support here on the channel. Just showing you guys what's out there, and this looks like a pretty interesting setup here, to say the least. So let me know what you guys think in the comments of this video. Drop a thumbs up, like I said, on your way out, and of course hit subscribe to stay in the loop for all future videos right here on the Chase Brogan YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys real soon.